And it's reserved piece at 1 for family. Well, I know, but that's what a lot of dogs always do. Okay, I'm making this one. I'm you gotta find some. I was in the Rose Bowl party because it was when you said slate. All the that's true. It wasn't. Don't want to get it out. But they're those guns to them and the home run has to ride. I mean, I'm not a football guy. But I know that the play here. I got to reserve
Hey, HC. Hey, how you doing, man? No class today. I'm gonna swear Jack. Yeah, we're swearing. Yeah, swearing. He didn't do it good. I know you're proud of
I'm going to bring your book back. I'm very interested. It's going to take a little time. And I'm going to tell you what kind of friend.
doing good. I hope you're all right. Glad to hear that.
You be having your son?
I'm not over your own, right?
Present company is flu.
I say yes, it gets easier with age. Okay.
You know about the weather? You know, she's always right
How you doing? You look like a well, I'm not sure.
So that's what you do.
Yeah, he brings it home.
I want to do that. Yeah, I'm ready for that myself.
I haven't seen him for a while. Patricia.
You speaking with me there? Yes, you did. I don't pronounce it. I started off, I told him I started off as Patty. He said that my uncle used to call me Patty.
My ex-wife had this Patricia, I call her Crown. She goes by church. Good evening, how you doing?
There's so many variations. I printed it off.
No, I heard
Let's take a chance with him now.
Look forward to seeing you.
Well, I know, I am.
I'm about over this cold, so I'm going to worst thing you can do is
How you doing up at Summit?
the whole road is got How are you, Bill? Good. Hey, fella. How are you? Hey, gorgeous. How you doing? Happy New Year. Hopefully by this time next week. I don't think I'm competitive. How are you? Good. You don't think you are? No, just did that post-laser trip and then things lay down.
Well, so
Hi, Bill.
hey, Richard, how you doing?
Don't ignore me so long.
I've been trying to for 6 years.
I know where you live. Norm, how are you? Happy New Year, sir. Sorry this morning. Yeah, well, I'm trying to get over this cold, and I don't want to get down and start hacking this morning.
Starting just before Christmas.
So we got mine.
For the 21st and 20th, show the sore throat. Bill this morning said his was expected to have a sore throat. Whatever it is, it's
Well, I went up to Charlotte to visit my daughter and grandchildren. Two small children in elementary school. I was there 24 hours before I started. 2 days before Christmas. So at least now it's down to the hacking stage. You know, you wake up in the morning and expel those beautiful yellows.
Yeah, it took me probably till, well, I still get 1 or 2 a day, but it took me like 2 days ago. I had it from like the 20th, the 3rd or 4th.
We don't get as well.
That's pretty nice.
I noticed, I used to get a cold 4 or 5 days.
My mother just said this last oh, it takes something, it'll take a week.
Go ahead and take your seat. We'll begin here in just a minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the first meeting in the new year, January the 5th, 2012. And if you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing for the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for all that are here. Families, our new officers, our new elected officials. We ask that you be with us all. We help us to guide each other and help make this city even a greater place to live. We ask that you be with all those who are sick and unable to be here. Be with our armed forces and everyone that lives in our city. All these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Okay, this is a very special night for many of us here, and good to see all of the friends and relatives and interested folks here. Considering how special this night is, certainly, you notice we have 2 vacant seats up here tonight, but those are about to be filled. We're fortunate tonight to have Judge Marion Pope with us, who will do the swearing in of the 3 council members, 2 new, and of course Jack Goodwin, who will be returning, and along with myself. So I'm going to be the first victim here, but I would like for Judge Pope to come up and to begin the ceremonies. But let me say, most everyone here, I'm sure, knows Judge Pope. He's been around a good while. He's been a Superior Court judge and a Georgia Court of Appeals judge. He's done a great job. He's very well respected in the community, and he means a lot to all of us here in Cherokee County. Judge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council, and friends, and the family, and audience. I want to tell you a very short story before I call up the mayor for swearing in. The difference between winning and losing, and I've had both. There was a young guy in France. It was called Normandy then, called William. He was illegitimate, and so he was known as William the Bastard. But he conquered the British Isles in 1066. This is a true story, it's historical. And defeated the British Isles and the King Harold, H-A-R-O-L-D. And he wanted to be king. And he told the king, if you will let me have the crown, I will adopt all of your English law. And King Harold abdicated the crown, the throne, and William the Bastard became known as William the Conqueror. That's the difference in winning and losing. We'll be speaking French tonight. We haven't adopted all the English laws, so we are an English common law state, as you well know. So having said that, the oath is very ancient. Comes down to us with the dust and grime of centuries. And a lot of people, and you may have a different story, but this is my story, and I'll stick to it. In ancient times, only people who were free-born were able to take an oath, swear an oath. If you were not free-born, if you were a slave, you couldn't swear or affirm an oath. In order for the magistrate administering oath to know the difference, you were branded. If you were a slave, you were branded in the palm of your right hand. So the magistrate hold up your right hand to see if you were entitled to swear, or you were free-born and entitled to take an oath. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. There may be other reasons. A lot of people have said, well, that's the hand you fight with, but there's a lot of left-handed people. And that's the hand you carry a sword with. And I know there's a lot of other explanations, but I can understand The others say, well, you got the left hand on the Bible, you know, so that's why you hold up your right hand. I've been told, and I've studied the history of how the English law come about, and that's about as close as I can get in horseshoes. So, Mr. Mayor, you want to come forward, please, sir? Any relative want to come forward? I'll ask all the members. Oh, there they are.
I'm the only one complaining.
I had more than this 4 years ago.
Hold the Bible for us. This way we can get a better picture.
Right hand.
Right hand on the Bible, hold up the left hand. I, Gene Hobgood, do solemnly swear
that
that I will faithfully perform the duties of mayor
I will faithfully perform the duties of mayor
of this city,
of this city,
and that I will support and defend the charter
and that I will support and defend the charter
thereof, as well as the Constitution
thereof, as well as the Constitution
and laws of the state of Georgia,
and laws of the state of Georgia,
and of the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
and of the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. I've got something for you to sign. In order to make this really official, and this doesn't say anything in the ordinance, I'm having to have them sign the oath and date it so that it'll be spread upon the minutes of the city so that they'll see what they swore to. I go back and look up my signature when I have to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll give this to the clerk. Now, Jack Goodwin, would you come around, please? You and family want to come up? Could you put your, I, Jack Goodwin, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of the councilman of the city and that I will support and defend the charter. Support and defend the charter, as well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia and that of the United States of America. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. Councilman. You got it. Jack's dad and I were classmates in a high school that's no longer in existence. Canton High School. All right, Glenn Cummings. You have members of the family. Yes, sir. Now, I think this is your first oath, right? The city council. I, Glenn Cummings, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully perform the duties of council member of this city, and I will support and defend the charter thereof, as well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia, and that of the United States of America. So help me God. Congratulations, Glenn. Take your seat. All right. D.H. Hooky Huffman. Anybody else want to come up, members of the family? hold up the right hand.
He's got it right. He's the first one to get it right.
I'm dyslexic.
I thought you did good.
I.E.H. Hooky Huck.
I.E.H. Hooky Huck.
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform
I will faithfully perform
the duties of council member of this city,
the duty of council member of this city,
and I will support and defend
and I will support and defend
the charter thereof,
the charter thereof,
as well as the Constitution and laws of the state of Georgia,
as well as the constitutional laws of the state of Georgia,
and that of the United States of America.
and that of the United States of America.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Give it to you. Let me hand it over to God. Whoever that was, we're observing, because Jack Fedler's not sworn in.
He's supposed to go up here now.
We'll sit up here, we're gonna see you up here.
He go back to
You get a little nervous, taking the oath and then giving the oath. Gave us a mayor out there before like we had.
Judge, just hold up here. I just wanted to thank you very much for your participation here. And I wanted to give you something here that I know you spent quite a number of years in the old courthouse there, sending some people and sending them to jail. And other things that I know you did, but you probably don't need a reminder, but I would like to give you this print of the old courthouse.
I don't have one, thank you very much. I always told them the jail's on the 4th floor. I said, I'm gonna send you where you can see the backs of eagles.
I'll be pretty brief here. I just want to make a few comments here at the beginning. You know, every 2 years, the voters get a chance to decide to make up this council. Barely 4 years ago, the average number of years served by the mayor and council members averaged approximately 13 years. Beginning tonight, that number has dropped to about 2.1 years. So Jack and I are senior members with 1 term each. So you can see there's a great difference in just 4 years ago, and it's truly a younger, maybe not in age, in years experience. And I think what this council may lack in those number of years as experience on a city council is made up for an enthusiasm, interest in the issues, and really just the love of this city. And it takes that in order to sacrifice the way you have to in order to participate in this. You know, it's certainly an honor for any one of us up here to serve. There's no doubt about that. We can never forget that. And we must remember always that we are here to serve the citizens of the city and the voters. We need to remember that. We can never forget it. And I certainly am indeed honored to serve and begin a 2nd term as your mayor and to work with this new council. I sincerely mean that. But you know, with this honor comes a responsibility. And the responsibility is to establish some common sense policies for the operation of this city and to provide oversight to ensure the implementation of these policies. This council will insist, I believe, on good management and especially good customer service. I predict that this council will provide fiscally responsible progress, continuing to reduce debt and making good financial decisions. That's what we're here for. The players may have changed, but our mission remains the same: to serve our community and to protect the qualities of this community that we all cherish. The year ahead will be challenging, with numerous issues to be resolved. This council is up to the challenge, and I predict will be results-oriented. We will make a decision, and we'll move on. We'll discuss. We may not always agree, and hopefully we won't. But we will make a decision and we'll move to the next issue. We don't want a lot of these things to drag on forever. We'll make a decision and move on. I'd like to thank each of our council members for their willingness to serve and for the sacrifice that's required. Some of the sacrifices, some of them don't quite know yet. And I'm looking forward to working with this new 2012 council. Thank you. Okay, time for our public input period. We have a couple of people signed up to speak during the 10-minute public input period. Wait a minute, we're not quite there yet, are we? We've got to approve our agenda first of all, I think, before we move into that. Do I have a motion that we approve the agenda? Second. There was one issue, I believe, that we needed to amend the agenda to delete
fire systems as there's now merged with another company. Just a few days ago. That doesn't like to do that we table this for a couple of months until they can.
Okay, so with the motion then, if you'll accept that, would be to approve the agenda deleting section 8A, discussion of contract with fire systems. Okay, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay. And of course, we have already welcomed and once again welcome all of our visitors and relatives and those who are here tonight. The 10-minute public input period, we have, first of all, Mr. Jeff Jones.
Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Jeff Jones, and I've lived here in the city since 2008. I have a family of 4 and work in a leadership position in Cobb County. The issue I bring to you is twofold. First, what motivated me to action is the latest water rate increase that took place in June. Our family is now faced to make major cuts in other utilities to pay for outrageously high water rates. Many families are now faced with bills hovering around $200 per month for a family with just 2 to 3 children. I've done my research and found that the reservoir is a noose around our neck and the city's neck choking us dry, and yet there is no buyer to speak of. Bankruptcy on a $30 million debt is not an option, and Cherokee County does not want to purchase a failing water distribution system. Meanwhile, the EPD is regularly fining the city as the city tries to stay in environmental compliance. Families today are paying a very high price for terrible mismanagement of past administrations. In our quest to find a viable solution to this massive problem, we have come to one conclusion that may seem outrageous, but outrageous problems require dramatic action. We propose dissolving the city of Canton, allowing Cherokee County to absorb the city entirely. This may be attractive to the county considering they could have all the resources that Canton has to offer. We citizens defined as a family of 4 living in a $100,000 home pay an additional $932 per year just to call Canton home. Meanwhile, we pay county tax as well. So I asked the council and mayor, what additional benefits do I have as a city resident that the county residents do not have? And what better legacy could this administration leave than relieving financially strapped citizens from the painful burden of the failing water department? We citizens are prepared to lead a grassroots movement to dissolve or merge the city and thus allowing a thriving Cherokee County to absorb the financial difficulties of the water department. And lastly, I am not here to be a curmudgeon, but as a father and a public servant, I am here to inspire and elicit change and motivate all of us to make the courageous changes these citizens so desperately deserve. Thank you again for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Gallup. Mr. Park? Park?
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year.
Yes. I was here a month ago, and I talked about help us to visit small businesses here in Canton. And you're good. Decision helps me, and not only me, for the business. Yes, and I would like to talk about some more about how to help this business. As you know, news media forecast about the 2% increase economic growth this year. 2% growth means, considering the inflation, is minus growth. So this year could be another harder year, business-wise, not personal-wise. So I want you to help small business and business units in Canton. And I would like to talk about my idea how to help the business. I worry, I scared if you already know my idea, but I would like to talk how to make. Okay, I visited a website, City of Canton, and found that there is many beautiful programs. And then about to increase the business, my idea. To increase the visitors, Canton, City of Canton, and then increase tourists, and increase the population. It helps to increase the business in City of Canton. So I visited the website and found that there is some spring festival, summer festival, fall festival. Very beautiful programs here. I'd like to make some better festival. And then some announcement, like give the information, public relations, advertisement, so that all the Georgians knows Canton, City of Canton festival, so that they could enjoy. But advertisement, it costs too much, $10 million, too expensive. So I'd like to meet mayor and the councilor, telephone call to the CNN, telephone to the agency, or the television network, and the newspaper, and the radio service, and then make appointment with them too, and meet them and introduce a nice festival, and then introduce our program through the 9 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news, or newspaper box, and introduce then many children will read the information, and then they could come to City of Canton with their family. Then they could stay here, buy dinner, lunch, and then they buy some souvenir, and then they buy gas. It's very good for business. And if they found it's a good place, then they couldn't move, live here, and then they could send their kid to Cherokee School. This house is good for living. That is increase the population, I think. And then if possible, you could send a letter or email to the Steven Spielberg. This is a good place for the making film. And then letter to the Universal Studio or Columbia Studio. It's lower possibility, I think. Yes, low possibility. But this is a much better, 100 billion times better idea than buying Georgia lottery. I think. High possibility. So if you send every month, then it could increase the curiosity about the City of Canton. Then one thing we could send some people to see the City of Canton. Then it helps if they could make a film here, then it gives better business opportunities. And then after the completion of the film, then tourists could come to see the place to make film. Yes, this is some rough idea, but let's make some a variety of ideas to make how to have the business in Canton. This is my. I want to ask you to have the business. If it's good for Georgia, if it's good for Canton, it's good for Georgia. Good for Georgia, good for America. Good for America, good for the world. So this hard period of time, we have to work hard. This is good for us, good for future generations. Yes, time is not good for us. We can't spend time to wait or watching. We have to work. We have to move. I think. Yes. Second topic. Yes, I have gas station 4 years, and then 3 years ago I had a bounced check. Sorry, and then I bounced the check. I sent to the court, and then I sent it to the police, and then I applied some expensive $20, $40. And then I had expected policeman could give some good news to clear the $75 plus 2 pounds to check, so that I could compensate my losses. As you know, it's very hard to increase sales because people no money to spend. So I have to squeeze all the expenses to survive. But no development, really. And then a couple of weeks, 1 month ago, I checked the CCTV and then found my good regular customer grabbed candy bar, 20 candy bars and into the bag. And then I found the customer come every week. So I checked every week the customers come videotape. And then whenever come, she grabbed and then leave. So I see the tape, and then when the customer came, I showed the videotape, and then took the customer, then ran away and drove out. So I called the police, and the police come, and I explained, and I showed the videotape, and then see 2 weeks passed, but no development. So I called, what happened then? Oh, I'm sorry, somebody called you, but no development. So I called it today this morning, nobody answered, so I left the voicemail, so, but still no information. This is very, not so serious. This is very minor product, minor item. Yes, police station, very busy, I understand. There's very serious crimes. But this is another serious, I think. This is a collapse of the credibility, trusted society. Bounce the check. They think very easy. Some people think easy. I move, give the bounce the check, and then I move. Then that's it. Nobody call me. Nobody trace me. Pay bounce check and then leave. And they still, they no problem. And then grab something and then leave and something. Nothing happened. That's the problem for the society, I think. So. And then my friend had some problem, some gas tank, and then ran off, drive off, and then that's it. Call to police and then no development. I gave the CD and then car plate number, but still they didn't check, no development. Very disappointing. So if you have a chance, please talk. This is very important for small business. If the business is going, then small business, many stores close. Then it's a more serious problem. So we have to help small business and then help to increase the trusted society, I think.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like for Mr. Wood to follow up on this and get some answers so that we can stop the problem and try to help you out. So I think that would be something we need to get started on pretty quick.
Thank you very much.
Maybe I didn't understand. I thought he was talking about bounce checks.
Well,
There's a couple of things there. He's got videotapes. He's got the names of some tags, car tags. He's got some evidence of the criminals that are perpetrating the crime. And we need to get some results.
Has this been repetitive? Has it happened more than once with the same people?
Yes, 3 times. I have a videotape 3 times.
Okay. I'll be glad to meet with him or have somebody from the police department meet with him and understand this is a criminal matter. So what level of involvement we can have may be somewhat restricted. Bobby, you can advise us on that if you would, please. I'll be glad to meet with him and help him any way we can go through the process to be sure he understands what the process is, which I think is probably what you're suggesting, Mr. Beresford.
No, I'm asking for results. He's reported it to the police department and hasn't got any callbacks or anything else. He's turned it over and said, help me, and had no results. So I would like to find out where it's at. So somebody should be out there tomorrow morning knocking on his door.
We need to be sure we know how to contact you, sir. Do we have that, Ms. Stanton? Do we have some contact?
Yes, I will leave my telephone number in there. Yes.
Please.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment as well. On our first speaker, Mr. Jones, he's issued us quite a challenge. Why are we here? I mean, I love the city of Canton. It's unthinkable to me to dissolve the city. But what value, this is a question I'm asking myself as well as everybody up here because I don't know the answer. Why should a young working family living in a $100,000 house pay an additional $900 and something to live in the city of Canton when they can get the same thing a mile away? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to ask it again, and hopefully I'll have an answer myself, but I appreciate him bringing that up.
I think there are some advantages. Insurance rates for one, number one. Perhaps garbage rates is another one. And when you really look at our water rates, that's one thing we need to bring before this council. How do our water rates compare with others around us? And I believe Mr. Cummings over there has done some research in that. And, you know, while we are higher certainly than the county, no doubt, when you compare us with some of the other cities, you might be surprised where we stand.
We are actually considerably higher than the county, which I was not aware of, but we are.
That was only after our last increase.
Correct.
Our increase, absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely.
But again, the question in general is there $900 and something worth of value to live here, and if not, we need to take a hard look at why we even exist. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'd like for Mr. Jones to make sure he leaves a contact.
I have. I've left the email address on the sign-in sheet.
Thank you.
Good.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Thank you both for bringing those items before this council. Okay. Consent agenda. I believe we had a motion before I realized we need to back up there to approve the consent agenda. To approve our agenda. We already did that. The consent agenda is items that we need to, we don't need to vote on this, but we need to know that these items, which are A and B, the financials and review of the minutes from December the 15th, we have in our package, and we will need, there will be action on these at the meeting on the 19th. Does anybody have any comments they want to make about it?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have 3 questions on the financials that I'd like to address to Mr. Wood and Mr. Ingram. First one is under the operating revenues, the water charges and the sewer charges are way ahead of budget. And at the rate we're currently looking at, I don't know if that's skewed because of our billing problems, but if it continues at or near that rate, would not the planned rate increase as budgeted be unnecessary?
certainly all of it would be if we continued at that rate. Part of the answer to your question, Mr. Cummings, is yes, there is a somewhat of an aberration in this fiscal year because of the delays in billings which occurred right near the end of the last fiscal year. But yes, sir, and I think I've understood that council intends, once some reasonable history has been established of the net effect of that rate increase, to revisit that issue. So, yes, sir, the answer to your question would be that it might not all be necessary, yes, sir.
So about 2 months down the road, we should have a much better picture as to where we stand before we implement a rate increase. The second is really a point that Mr. Wood and Mr. Ingram and myself, we discussed the creation of a bond debt analysis spreadsheet covering at least 10 years. And this analysis would show all bonds for which the city has an obligation, individually state the purpose of the bond, and show by year the principal and interest payments required to be made. In addition, I've requested that all projected new capital requirements be also shown on the spreadsheet. And in talking to Mr. Ingram about a week ago or so, or actually last month, he said he had no problem with providing the council with this spreadsheet by the February work session. Are we still going to be able to do that?
Yes, sir.
Super. I'd like to, if it's not too much trouble, we didn't talk about this, also include an annual estimate of the operational costs to be incurred by the city once the reservoir is operational, just to show that, because my intent is to look at that bond analysis and derive what the actual indebtedness costs per 1,000 gallons of water consumption over a period of time, so that we know exactly the amount of money that we would have to have in our revenue stream if we have to continue to service that debt. The second financial question I have is related to the stormwater management operating expense, and I assume that's probably just a timing situation in that it's virtually we've had no expense year to date. Or we've had, wait a second, let me get, we've had, it's actually the non-operating stormwater reserve. I'm getting myself out here. From an operating expense is way under budget. It's $1,619 in November, $5,630 year to date. It's only 1.14% of budget. Is that because of a timing issue of the expense being?
Yes, sir. We will fund all of the Jarvis Street project 100% out of stormwater, but a greater consequence to that line item will be the street projects that we're doing. As I recall, don't hold me to this number exactly, but I think about a third or so, maybe a little more than that, of our local expenses will come out of stormwater funds. So you'll see that number radically change as those projects.
Yeah, so there's no consistency in terms of monthly.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Super. Thank you. And then the collection of impact revenues is also, is that a lag also due to seasonal, or is that due to a lower amount of fees being collected?
Lower amount of fees being collected. To a nominal degree, perhaps seasonal. I think more of the activity is during the summer months, but basically because there's not development occurring.
That was all I had on financials. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
On the review of the minutes of the meeting, you said we're going to hold off to vote on that to the next.
What's the next meeting here? Unless
Well, we're obligated to approve the minutes of the meeting every 2 weeks. So we've got to figure out, we got to start getting on that program.
I don't know that it matters on the minutes if everyone has had an opportunity and should have to review those minutes. If there's any reason we shouldn't approve those at this meeting.
The state law says that the minutes should be approved at the next regular meeting.
So if you consider this a regular meeting, then you probably ought to be approving the minutes of any previous meetings.
The reason, Brent, we did fall behind when we lost our clerk, and our minutes got to be where we would sign off on 2 or 3 meetings. So what we should do is kick this year off and maintain a program that is dictated by the state, that we approve minutes. I just ask that we approve them.
I'm all for that. You want to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of the December 15th meeting.
Okay, have a second. I have a second, okay. Any other discussion, any changes or anything to those minutes?
Mayor, the only discussion I would have is that we normally consider the regular meeting as the second meeting of the month. And so unless we're going to start a precedent to start doing this every work session.
That's a good point, and I think that's kind of why we hadn't done it, but anything else?
Well, I would just be in favor of staying with the regular meeting as long as we do it promptly at the regular meeting and not fall behind. I mean, that's.
If you read the fine line, when we're in arrears, we should do it at every meeting, which is a regular meeting. It doesn't say that this is a workshop and the other one is a voting meeting. It's a regular council meeting. And that's what the state asked us to do. We have failed last year. I don't care to have the sunshine laws not followed to the letter. And you call regular what you want to call regular, but this is a meeting that happens every first Thursday and every third Thursday, regularly. That's the definition of these meetings.
I simply defer to our city attorney the definition of regular.
The intent of the law, I think, is that you approve them as soon as possible. And I think that the way the state law uses regular just means scheduled. I don't think we're going to cause any problems.
Okay, then with that clarification, I'm in total agreement.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to refrain from voting because I was not part of that meeting in which the minutes.
Right. Okay, we have a motion on the floor there that we approve the minutes from the December the 15th meeting. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion with Mr. Huffman and Mr. Cummins abstaining since they were not here at that time. Okay. Under old business, 8D, discussion of revised consent order schedule, authorization to Infotech to proceed. What we're saying here is just noting that with Infotech's assistance, we were able to move the schedule a little bit from March 1st to have our corrective action plan. Well, we have a corrective action plan in. But to begin the first step of that corrective action plan, to have it completed by, instead of February 1st, would be like March 15th. And the first step in that is the development and design report, which is the very beginning of making those corrections. So just want everybody to know that change has been made, and I believe they have begun at least already started a little bit on that, putting stuff together for that report. And we'll talk about that more at the following meeting. Item C, discussion of the comprehensive fire protection plan for the city of Canton. We have met, the city manager and I have met with the county briefly and talked about the fire service and how we may or may not work together in improving our fire service. And as it stands now, it appears that we need to move forward where we are. At least that's my opinion. And that the best way to proceed is to first know what we need to do. And the only way to do that is really to get a consultant who knows about the ISO ratings, what it takes to achieve the fire protection. We have We have a fairly low rating, lower than certainly the unincorporated area of Cherokee County. And we want not only, I think, to maintain that, but I think we want to achieve a 3 if we can. Instead of 4, we need to be at a 3. And we need to put in place, in my opinion, what it takes to do that. And the only way we are going to know what it's going to take is to have a comprehensive fire protection plan for this city. And once we get that implemented, then we know whether we need to move with 1 fire station or can we move with 2 or 3 at one time. And this consultant, whoever it might be, would need to coordinate not only within our city, but would need to coordinate with the county so that we knew what their plans were and how we coordinate all of our stations to assist both of us, but especially make sure that the city is protected. It would be my recommendation too, at this point, that we consider very strongly a bond referendum, and now it's pushing kind of late for the presidential preference primary, I think, to get everything in order and get the comprehensive plan completed. But we could actually do that by the general primary in July and have a bond referendum, and if the citizens so chose, we could, we could afford to implement the plan that we ended up with at that point. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. In your presentation earlier this evening, you talked about pushing things down the road. I don't want to use that.
This has been pushed down a little bit.
It has. We discussed this 3 times this past year, and I thought we had Chief Floyd looking as a name, as a party. I thought we had turned it over to Mr. Wood to bring that forward so that we can get that process started. And now we're talking about it again as if we never discussed it. We've got to get on this thing, get it done. We missed the march. I thought that's what we were going to talk. Mr. Rush brought that forward 4 months ago, and a good discussion, and here we are. It's got to stop. I'm just saying it. I agree with your statement. I want to hear what the action step will be and what's the target date to get that accomplished, to get an expert in here to evaluate our city and then get back with the answers.
Well, I certainly think it would be wise if we could get, go ahead, Mr. Rush, before I say anything.
No, the only thing I would agree with Mr. Beresford in that I think we had already discussed that we were going to go with the ISO consultant to see where we are, and we should just do that post haste because we can get inspected anytime and we would lose our ISO rating, and I think Chief Floyd agrees with that. The other thing I would like to add is I'm not in favor of a bond referendum for a couple of reasons. One is that we can't use bond money to pay for the salaries of the fire people we have to hire to get our staff up to the level that it's understaffed right now. And we need revenue that's permanent and continuing, and a bond referendum is not, in my opinion, where we should be. We do have SPLOST money that's dedicated to the building of at least 1 fire station, and we need to look at other sources of revenue to maintain our safety program. Because the only other comment I make is the administration borrowed $8 million to fund a reservoir, and at that time made no provision to pay it back until we had to raise the water rates through the roof.
Yes.
I support what he's saying, except the fact is, just don't worry about the second part. Let's get the first part done as soon as possible, but we'll see what monies are going to be required. Then we need to take the action steps one way or the other, what we need to do to achieve that goal. But we got to get this thing off square one right now.
Yeah, I think we need to, if Mr. Wood would bring back to us at our next meeting steps and time frames, if you would, to secure the services of a consultant and the time frame for the completion of any analysis. We're after the first of the year now. I understand that, at least from previous discussions, that There are new guidelines or new requirements under the ISO that maybe are taking effect in 2012. And we ought to know roughly what those are and what steps we need to take in order to improve our fire service and meet those requirements, I think. So I tend to agree. We don't have to decide we're going to have a bond referendum tonight, but I think that needs to be in the back of our mind as a possibility, because we might be able to build one fire station, but we may need 2 or 3, and I know we're going to need 2 or 3 ultimately, particularly if this economy ever turns around. I mean, we're already behind, and we're going to get further behind quick. Sure would be good to almost get caught up at some point in the future. Now, I think there's no doubt about it. I understand what you're saying, that you can't use the bond money for operational costs, but you can use it for buildings. And why would you want to raise taxes or perhaps for, why would you want to raise taxes for a building when you can do it through the bond referendum? And I think that would, what that really does is, to me, the most important aspect of the thing is it gives people a choice. It lets the citizens decide, do you want to build 2 or 3 fire stations? You know you have to pay for it, but that's your choice. If not, you drop back and do the best you can with one, and there will be a tax increase, I don't think, down the road for our general fund in order to meet operational costs that you're talking about. I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. But anyway, we don't have to make that decision about the bond referendum now, but I think it needs to be an option out there for us.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to get things moving a little quicker, and I'm sure that any consultant would come in here could probably pick out some items fairly quickly that our chief Dean Floyd has already recognized what those are. And there are some that we could probably start moving on right now rather than wait. Is that let him give us a list of things that he thinks we could start working on today, tomorrow, or in the next month or so. And let's get started. The consultant will come in, and I'm sure the consultant would say, that's a good move. Our chief knows enough about what we need to do that I don't think, I think part of the things that the consultant would say, we already know. And I'd like to see us move hastily in moving towards doing some of those items. Exactly what they are, I don't know. He could probably supply us a list.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We will talk about that more in our meeting on the 19th. Mr. Wood, do you have an update on the Elwha River Park progress? I know you and I have met with Lance, the architect, and some of the officials from the county in the not too distant past. Can you bring us up to date on exactly?
I'll be glad to. Let me, before we move on, let me just speak to the fire consultant. Chief Floyd and I have been in touch with a consultant here in the state. I have this week been checking references on that consultant, and he and I are trying to schedule a meeting with him up here. So we're not at all stagnant on that consultant recommendation process. We're just trying to go through the right steps and be sure we get the right person, but we will make it our intention to have a very specific recommendation for council's consideration at the next meeting. With respect to the Elwha River Park, Mayor Hobgood and I met with Mr. Nichols, the architect, Robbie Bryant, Mr. Nichols is the county's architect over the sales tax program. Robbie Bryant with HDR is the architect who's responsible for designing our particular park, and also with Jerry Cooper, the county manager. We have downstairs in the library a new schematic that we would like to show to all the council. At any point in time you're in the building, either the mayor or I, either one, would be glad to show that to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be organized or programmed at this point, but we would like to expose you to that. It involves the relocation of the baseball fields to Univetter Road area. and frees up a lot of the Etowah River Park space for more limited programmed activities, and includes the amphitheater. As you recall, the bridge and some other components of that park are add-ons, and they will be bid out separately. But in essence, the county is waiting on us in a formal sense to communicate to them, to the county, our concurrence with the relocation of the baseball fields and our authorization for them to proceed with final design plans and then to solicit bid specifications. So as you can, please come by and let us be sure everybody's comfortable with that, and then subsequent to that, maybe as early as the next meeting, we would ask council to take an action communicating that authorization to the county.
Mr. Wood, if I may say though, I want to make sure everyone understands, and I asked the question to the representatives of the county, are we holding you up? Are we slowing this process down? The answer was no, we are not. So we've got a little bit of a little bit more time in order to finalize our decision and our concurrence with the plan that's laid out there. And we're in no way holding them up and stopping them from moving forward. They got enough to do on other items anyway. So, yes.
The last I heard, we're going to have to shell out money out of our Etowah Park to put over to the baseball fields. I have not heard a new firm number that we're going to be cut from our numerous times down to about 5.7 million. And if we got to give up another $1.5 to $2 million, I want to see some definite discussion on that, because next thing I know, we're going to be down to $4 million to try to put a pasture out there in Etowah Park. So I don't know if that discussion involved, but I didn't hear a number, and I hadn't seen anything on it. And I hear that we've got to give up a lot of our amenities that we were looking forward to put in our park, because we got to shell out for the county. And I just need more information.
Right. I think that if we could have at that next meeting that, I don't know if the last one was actually in the format of a financial analysis and our choices and so forth. But it seems, I know they've got that. So we need to make sure we have that here for the council prior to the next meeting, that they can look at and see what is actually proposed. But if they're taking the fields, if we keep the fields there at where they're proposed, it's going to be even more expensive than if they relocate them over on Univetta Road. And my feeling is that either way, the city of Canton will benefit from that, and the same players, the same people are going to use them, whether they're over there or over here. If they're over there, they can maintain them. They can look at it. If they're over here, we're going to get stuck with that. The same people are going to use them anyway.
I'm sorry.
But that's just not.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
It's $7 million some odd dollars with the ball diamonds on our field, and the cost was $1.5 to $2 million to put those diamonds there. So we said, just do away with the diamonds. Well, all of a sudden the county says, we've got $2 million that we're going to spend over on the other. What happened to our money? That's what I want to know. Did we lose our money?
They're still getting the same benefit, though. I guess that's the question.
That's fine. But then we lost that $2 million. I don't know what the numbers are right now, but I know it went back and forth. That's what we need to see what we're going to end up with, because every time we turn around, it's whittled. The initial was $9 million in our share. Immediately it went to 7.1, dropped down to 5.2 or whatever it is.
Pretty soon we'll be paying them.
Right, that's right. So,
it's fine.
Point of information, just want to update you. City Engineer West has been working hard on the design of the boat launch ramp. Just want y'all to know we hadn't forgotten about that. He's working with it. EPD to get the approvals. Wood discovered a very nice concrete ramp that's already there. So we're going to actually be pursuing designing it there, and that's still not going to cost us anything.
Good.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think what John is driving at, and having sat with the citizens and listened to this, is I never could arrive at what the total amount of money was to start with. I'd heard the 9 million, I'd heard 7.3. And is there any way we can get from the county to say there's 7.3 available, and we're gonna take, if you agree with us, 2.7 million was
Yes.
the last number for Askew Park addition, and the rest, the balance is available for the Etowah Park? I'd like to really see that kind of.
Well, that's what we have had that in the past, and it is available. So what we need to do is make sure that we get to all council members prior to the next meeting. But there's been 2 or 3 different scenarios. We need this analysis on the last proposal that they came back with.
Mr. Mayor, the drawings that are available for us to see, which I don't think any of us have seen, are they the park that we can get with the rest of the money?
Well, they don't know what we can get with the rest of the money. What they say is, yeah, this amount we feel like you can get, but then here's these other things out here depending on how much we have to spend for railroad crossing, how much if it comes under bid, and all this other stuff, you know.
I think that's what Mr. Beresford is
Yeah,
getting at.
it's sort
I
of
agree with him, because if we don't know, you know, we want a park there. We want a park that has a bridge to cross over into Heritage Park. And if we can't get anything but an empty field with a wood footbridge across, I'm not sure it's worth the money, but you know, we'd like to know what we're getting for whatever money is available to us.
Yeah, that's what you need to see prior to the next meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Are we buying that property over there, or?
No, over where?
For the baseball parks.
Oh, no, that's the county owns it.
The county owns it, so we're not buying it from, that's not in the $2 million. It's just, the $2 million is just to build the park.
Yeah, that's correct.
Just one more thing, then I'll stop talking about that. We're gonna foot the bill, or put the state, this ballpark in. They're offering up the land, we gotta come up with the monies. What are they offering up? You mentioned maintenance. Okay, fine. Are they gonna throw $500,000 to build the diamonds? I don't know what they're doing. So it looks to me like we're giving everything for that. And they said we can have the right to name it. Well, that's fine. I don't want to name anything in a law. But that's additional issues we want to look at.
Did we not say that Dizzy Dean was gonna maintain
Perhaps. I don't know that there's any total agreement, but I think that would be a great possibility.
So if the county's throwing in maintenance and Dizzy Dean steps in and does it, they're really not throwing in a whole bunch. We just really need to sit down.
Here's the thing, I don't know that they're technically wanted to throw in anything to begin with. They wanted, we talked about moving those fields because they were gonna cost so much. Where we're gonna have to haul in so much dirt. Not only that, but you're gonna have traffic and no telling how many bells and whistles you're gonna have and fences to build along that railroad track that takes through there. And some retaining walls. And so, the county came up with the idea, well, we could do, they bought this property over there for the Killians on Univetta Road next to Kenny Askew. And basically, it's just, they would be willing to build that over there, but they won't, what basically our fields was gonna cost here, or if they could build them cheaper there, you know, we'd have a little bit more here. That was, it was sort of, I guess, initially our thought about, well, I think actually, I think somebody in Soapbox actually suggested that. And Harry Johnston mentioned that to us. So, but anyway, we'll defer the additional discussion of that until the next council meeting, but hopefully we'll have some dollar figures and things to talk about. Jack?
The only thing I'd like to say is that, you know, we've been beating this, so like John said before, we've been beating this around for a long time. This is really an item that's been beaten around for many years. Dizzy Dean, 1,100 children down there wanting to play baseball on few fields that we have. Monies have been collected in previous years for fields to be built, were not built. Nobody can ever find out where that money actually went to. But that's the honest truth. There was a spot that was done many years ago. I led one of the movements to try to raise it because I had children in the program at that time. But now we have got to go through this, find out exactly what all the details are, and get on with it. Because these children are having to either not play or leave this area and go play somewhere else. And that's the long and short of it. So we need to go on and get through it.
Amen. I agree with that. I would agree with that too. Okay. Under new business, discussion to approve a community garden at Big Oak property.
We've been approached by Roy Taylor and a lady named Elaine Wood about the possibility of using the Big Oak property. In fact, I think we might have suggested this when Mr. Taylor approached us about whether we had any unused property, and we made a suggestion that he might take a look at Big Oak Drive. He has done that. He has worked out a proposal, a finished copy of which is in your agenda. I think the only thing that he's asking us for, other than use of the property, is that we put in a water meter, but with the understanding that his group would pay the water bill on a monthly basis. If council does feel comfortable in going forward with this, after you've had a chance to look at it, you might want to consider whether or not there would in fact be a contract and exactly with whom individually or as an entity that contract would be, and what sort of terms of cancelability it may have. But I think everybody's familiar with Mr. Taylor and familiar with the community garden just down the hill at the four-way stop. And he seems to believe that there's enough interest in the community for an additional garden, and is asking to use that property for that purpose.
Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir.
Can Mr. Wood come with the number for putting in the meter? That's our
cost. Our cost.
Our cost.
Yeah.
That'll be our obligation. But then they'll stream the copper from the meter onto their facility.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. How do we handle the dog park property? Is it the city owns the property and we're just letting them use it, or have we leased it to them or anything? My concern is that if we have this organization and we have them building a shed and using tools and rakes and a community garden, I'm all for the garden, don't get me wrong. The only thing I'm suggesting is perhaps we should lease the property to them, and that way we can avoid any insurance problems and any, the city wouldn't be liable for anything there.
I think we could do something similar to what we have with the dog park, couldn't we? I mean, it's not exactly.
I think the way we did the dog park is that they're managing the park. We didn't actually lease them.
Okay.
And I
We had
got some
management
question.
agreement with
Yeah,
them,
I got a question about whether the city can actually be a lessor or a landlord. I need to check on that.
But if they're managing the park and someone has an accident there, for any reason, would the city be liable?
Yeah, they're responsible for the operation of the park.
Okay. I mean, that's my biggest concern.
Okay.
My concern only, I like the idea an awful lot, but Mr. Wood, if it's possible, can we get them to park at the garden that's right down at the foot of the hill? Can it look a little better? And then if we're going to have another one, we'd like to have it to be cared for a little better. So, I mean, it's got the city name on it. We need to have a little responsibility to keep care of it.
Okay. Can you convey that to?
I have already actually conveyed that from my own personal sentiments, but I certainly agree with Mr. Huffman. we certainly want to serve a social, economic, health process, but we don't need to do it at the aesthetic expense of our city. And I have communicated that previously, yes, sir.
Now, that city property?
That is not city property down there.
Down here, it's not
Yes.
city property, okay.
Well, we can still ask that they,
Sure.
I'm here if y'all need to ask any questions directly. I'm Lady Wood.
Oh, okay.
I volunteer to be the city garden manager, which I've gardened on Roy Taylor's private property for 3 years now. And we have a wait list of people wanting plots. It has been very, very interrupted. Am I out of bounds here?
No, you go right ahead.
Okay.
We're kind of informed.
Okay. Good. It seemed pretty crowded when I first got here with my first city council meeting. But I participated on Roy's property for 3 years. There is an issue trying to maintain it. He doesn't have a lot of space there, and it does look a little raggedy at times. I don't know if you garden, but you wind up with an awful lot of debris. And you know, 3 years ago we had a chipper from the city come, and we chipped up Christmas trees, and we used that for maintaining paths and all. That hasn't happened the last 2 years. I don't know why. We do have a garden volunteer work day coming up on the 16th, on MLK Day. That's how I got involved with it. I went online, tried to find something I could do. I moved here 5 years ago, trying to find something to get involved in the community. That's the only thing that was posted for newcomers to go do in their city. So I went and I worked my butt off shoveling mulch and freezing cold rain on election day, and got 2 garden plots, and now I have 4, and I'm willing to give up 2 of those. And Roy kind of strong-armed me into taking over this responsibility because he can't maintain both. His is, again, personal property, and the property at Big Oak is much better suited for a garden because, first, it doesn't have concrete 8 inches down below where there apparently was an old auto dealership there for years. And so we have to have raised beds at Roy's property and have to bring in basically your own dirt and everything else. At Big Oak, I went with him back in the summer. I took a look at it. I got really excited about it because it does lend itself to a great community garden. It's not visible from passersby. You have to have a specific reason to turn onto Big Oak to start with, and it dead ends. You have to live there. Second, you got to go up the hill to actually see the property where the garden would be. But the garden plan that Roy designed, we actually went, we walked it off, we measured it. I've actually gone ahead and talked to Lowe's, I've talked to Home Depot, and I've talked to the folks at Cloud Supply. They're very excited about this. Lowe's has community money that they give to projects such as this. I haven't gotten an actual dollar amount from them, but I just did a huge $30,000 kitchen remodel for Lowe's, and they owe me right now. That's the way I see that. And they're using my kitchen for their marketing at no benefit to me other than getting to say that they took pictures of my kitchen using. But I'm on good terms with the manager there and with the lawn and garden department. They're willing to give us tools. They're willing to give us access to their people to come out and do the demonstrations for anyone that wants to come out and do their actual demonstrations on Saturday mornings. Come out there and learn how to garden. Children's program, I've already contacted New Orleans, Louisiana Botanical Gardens. They have a program called Growing Gardeners. They will give me their entire curriculum. And I can have children come every Saturday for 6 weeks on summer break and learn how to garden, learn where their food comes from. And we'd love to go to the high school. They have a new culinary arts department. I've already checked all this out. I want to go to the high school and have them come do their own garden there. Let the kids grow their food, let them go back to school and cook it. So it's a good thing. It's a great thing for the community. City of Sanford, Florida, I lived there for 15 years. I was the marketing and PR director for the Main Street program. I know Ginger. I also work for Georgia Magazine, the EMC publication. I'm an ad rep and a writer for them. I'm taking this on for no money, and it's going to be a full-time job when I already have one. I'm not just a state rep, I'm a national rep for all the EMC publications. But gardening is a passion. It teaches kids things. It gives the community a place to go. Mr. Goodwin, I met you last summer at the tomato sandwich day. And I was so busy pushing this property, saying, yeah, we just gotta get the city to give us a water meter and then we can go with it. You know, are you interested in gardening? You can sign up over here. And I said, who are you? And he told me who he was, like, oh, well, I guess I'll be talking to you later then. But we talked it up. We have several people interested. But the Sanford, where it came from, the Sanford, they just started a community garden just last year. It's no cost to the city. They do have a water meter. It is fenced. We would really need to get this fenced. And again, I'm not asking the city to give us anything but a meter.
Lane, let me ask this question. I just asked Mr. Wood if the meter might not be there, but he said it's probably pulled. But the tap would already be there. It's already be tapped, so it's just a matter of setting a meter, it looks to me like. The other thing I was going to ask is, how many plots do you anticipate you would have on that site?
I have not walked that off yet. The way Roy has 4 by 16-foot raised beds.
Do you anticipate plenty of parking space and everything for vehicles?
There's a slab there. There's a slab for parking. There's a slab where the concrete, where the driveway was.
Yeah.
So now with Roy, we may have 3 cars at a time there. And I think he has 17 or 18 gardeners. Up there, I would like to pattern this after the Boston Commons gardens, where they're 15 by 20-foot plots. And I'd like to set it up on a as-need basis. If you have 5 kids, you can't feed them on 15 by 20 feet. So, and it's free for them to have the land to grow what they need. You know, I can't mandate that they all be organic. I'd like for them not to be putting pesticides on everything because it's city property. It's not my property. Where Roy, we're not allowed to use chemicals down there, which is great. But there's a lot of manure involved in that. But
that's why I grew up.
Exactly. And I will tell you, this is my husband, Bill Foster. This time last year, Bill, myself, Roy, and one other person spent 2 entire days at his property taking the kudzu off that fence up on that retaining wall, cutting back those trees, cleaning it up. We mulched it, we rake it. Again, we have a garden work session every couple of months or twice a year, and one is coming up. But it grows fast, it grows good, and that's stuff that we have done ourselves. That's why I hate giving up that, because I've got a fortune invested in amending those 2 beds that I've had for 3 years.
Well, we certainly appreciate you being here and making those comments, but I think that explains it a little bit better so the council can understand it, and we will discuss it at our next meeting, which will be on the 19th. I think it's a great idea. If we've got the space there that we're not using, why not? I mean, you know, I think it's a good idea to do that.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything else. I've got all my contact information.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on that? If not, we will move on to item B. Discussion of the final acceptance of Commerce Boulevards from Station 14 to 26. Basically, I am told this is a paved section of the Commerce Parkway, a boulevard extending on from where you see it there. If you go down Commerce Parkway, where you have to stop and turn left and go one way or the other where it's barricaded. If you go straight on, that's the portion of this road through there. The only things that are not complete in that are the sidewalks and the street lights, I believe. And the property, a lot of the property has not been developed, so that the property owners is willing to post a bond, so that you know, at the proper time to ensure that those sidewalks and street lights go in. But as development occurs, and you know, right now, of course, if development started, it would probably destroy any sidewalks or street lights that's in there that would be put in. So it sort of makes sense, and I am told by our Joby West, our attorney, not attorney, engineer, that this is in conformity with normal procedure that we would do. So, yes.
Our experience with bonds in the past have been no bonds, a year bond, no follow-up on bonds, and what happened to the bond?
That was then, this is now, John.
Okay, my question is, it just says they're gonna have a performance bond. I wanna know how long, is it unending? They haven't dug out there yet, they haven't done anything yet. And next thing you know, it could be a 12-month bond. In 12 months, we signed off on something, and here we are again. I wanna see a bond that's unending.
That's sort of what you.
It will either be, our options are open-ended, which is the best way, the preferable way. If there is a time frame, then that puts a burden on the developer, because that's just a matter of keeping track of it. If you had a 24-month, we would want to call the bond before 24 months. So having a deadline is not necessarily a problem as long as you keep track of it, which is why we prefer to have them open-ended.
Okay.
So that we don't have to.
So this should be stated in here then.
Right.
That we're gonna have an open-ended bond.
Right.
And on the checkoff sheet where it says the Canton maintenance check sheet, the two items that were not, that they were Xed, that means that that document goes with it and says that the street lights and the sidewalks and et cetera, stop signs, striping the streets, that is so good. So that will be covered under this bond.
That's under the bond. I thought striping was already done.
It says striping is not.
Yeah, Mr. West's letter says the condition requires Northside Cherokee to submit a performance bond or other acceptable surety to assure the installation of sidewalks, streetlights, signage, and striping. As I recall, there is striping in the middle of the lanes, but there could be additional striping or restriping of those.
Right. One other point. This request is by Northside Hospital. We do have this thing that's called Northside Parkway, and it ends currently halfway around. I would like to make sure that they will continue that road. That was part of their plan. And now it's like they're not interested in it anymore because they're going to try to make Commerce Boulevard the main thoroughfare. And if we're bringing in ambulances and stuff, I think this should still be on the North Side Parkway.
Don, Don Hospitals here representing the hospital on this. Is it your position that the North Side Parkway, as exists now, will be completed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so y'all will be completing that on through there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
okay.
Okay, just.
I misunderstood there too, okay.
Well, it hadn't been discussed in a while until we had our last meeting when you brought it up.
Right, okay.
That, because of the traffic light situation and all that, yes, we discussed it after.
Okay, good.
And we're going to include that as part of the overall extension from 140 up to.
Beautiful.
Yes, sir.
I mean, the ambulances will be coming right through there before they'll go through that traffic maze to go down
Commerce Park.
Yeah, they sure will. Yes, sir. Yeah. Great.
Okay. Any other questions for him? Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I live in that neighborhood that's like literally right behind there. Where is that street coming out?
And what, on 140 you're talking about?
I live at Cherokee Overlook, so that's literally right behind where y'all
Yeah,
live.
just east of you a little bit there. Can you tell her, can you describe where it's coming out?
It's hard to.
Is it at that house that's right there?
No,
where
there's a
that
sign there.
is?
It's further to the east.
Southeast,
of the
yeah.
house.
Okay.
There's a black sign on the property.
Yeah. Okay.
It's further to the east.
Okay, it's further down. Thank you. That was it.
I think you'll appreciate, we're doing extensive road work on 140 also to improve that traffic flow right there. We're doing almost a quarter of a mile of
Are you
road
going to
work.
be putting a stop light?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Will you be putting a stoplight there at all?
Our plans are to, yes.
Okay.
We have to meet certain requirements for DOT.
Well, I understand all that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Don.
And just, if I could, Mr. Dyer, I know you just got the boilerplate bond from us today. We just got it, well, it actually went to the engineer. You may not have gotten it just yet. But our agreement was that we'll be open-ended or automatically renew do every year until the improvements are put in, so that we don't have to watch and you don't have to watch the expiration.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay. Discussion to authorize Nathan Ingram to sign city checks.
That's standard operating procedure, we just need to achieve that authorization.
Okay, next item, that'll be authorized for the next meeting. Discussion of the contract with Code Red for emergency notification system. You gonna handle that?
Yes, sir. Our current contract is with a company called Blackboard. Of course, Code Red was under consideration at this time last year, and the decision was made to go with Blackboard because it was assumed that service delivery would be about the same, and I think it is about the same. The Code Red, singular advantage to Code Red, as I understand it, basically computer to computer, and telephone to telephone, and somebody answers the telephone is the same. The advantage is, as I understand it, to Code Red is that it does provide us a more targeted weather alert, a more directed weather alert system, whereas the Blackboard system is county-wide anytime there's a tornado warning. I believe our biggest problem has not been necessarily the service provider. I think our biggest problem has been it's taken us a year to really try to figure out what it is we need to be responding to, and when and how we respond to it. And we've sat down recently and came up with a schedule that I think will afford us a much better standard operating procedure. So we'll know if the tornado warnings, what to do, snow and ice, what to do, flood danger, what to do, power outages, water main breaks, and water boils are the primary occasions when we've activated this system in the past. The Code Red system would cost us a little bit more money, but again, it gives us those directed weather alerts as opposed to the county-wide weather alerts. This is a big county. I don't know the distance from by the time you come in on 575 at exit 4 or 5 mile marker, I guess, is where you come into Cherokee County, and I don't know what it is, 30 or 40 miles, I guess, north. So it's a big county. So our current system has notified occasionally, I don't want to exaggerate this, it's not been often, but there have been occasions when we've notified people in Canton of tornado warnings that really were not ever destined to affect the city of Canton. So if we go with Code Red, that gives us greater weather targeting. So that we can target and notify our people when a warning applies to Canton and not countywide. Let me make one other point, and that is there are other companies. I don't want to complicate this thing at all. There are other companies who provide this service as well. Code Red was the first one that we talked to a year or so ago. This contract is expiring, by the way, so whatever direction council wants to take, we probably need to act on as soon as possible to minimize the downtime of not having a system. These are annual contracts. But Code Red, again, the advantage to Code Red, it's a little bit more expensive, another $4,000, $3,000-$4,000 total. No, sorry, it's not that much. It's about $2,500. The $2,500 will get the more targeted weather alert with Code Red. But again, I want to be sure you know there are other companies out there if you wanted to look at other companies.
Yes. The only question I would have is we made a big issue a year or two ago about not going out for bids on a contract. And why are we not going out for bids on this contract?
My understanding is, and maybe I'm wrong, my understanding is that this is an acquisition that is within the prerogative of the city manager's limit of expenditure, which he can spend on that. And quite honestly, we sort of went out for bid before, but I don't have a problem doing that even now. The only thing is we push us a little bit later on that.
The only comment I would make is according to Mr. Wood, the problem was not blackboard, the problem was internal, and we're fixing the internal problem. So if we haven't had any complaints and it's going to cost more money, I understand the benefit of the targeted weather report, but you get a tornado alert, turn the TV on, you see the map anyway. I have no objection to going with Code Red. It's just, it seems we're just spending more money and getting a little bit better service.
Question. Yes. Seems like I remember it. Isn't this about a $15,000 contract?
Yes, sir, in that range. It's 15 to 13 range, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm just, next meeting if we need to, or right now, I'm just suggesting we let Mr. Wood handle that decision, delegate that.
He can do that, yes.
Absolutely. That would be my position. Let's handle that and move on.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I have one question on the contract. It's not a fixed rate. In the contract, if we incur over 37,500 calls in a year, we incur an additional cost of 33 cents for each call. Now, I know that when I was getting weather warnings, I was getting a call to my home phone, my cell phone, my wife's cell phone. I was getting an email. Now, is this 4 separate calls under this contract? They call it points of service under the contract, but I don't know if the charges are counted as 4 calls. And that wasn't 4 calls one time. I think in the last tornado warning, I got 3 different warnings, so I had 12 calls. So looking at this extra cost, we could be signing a contract where we're incurring costs above the $20,000 mark. You're right, it is under 20,000. It's 18,750 in year 2. In year 1, they give us a break on that weather addendum, but I guess I'd like to see a flat rate to a flat rate or a fixed rate to a fixed rate comparison.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We have in that system 37,500 contacts. In a normal city of 60,000, that is pushing the ceiling. So we will not get anywhere near unless we have a tornado 2 or 3 times a week or water breakage 2 times a week based upon our current population. Also, we lock in as we grow, we will not have an increase with that type of program. So
If that's the case, then they should be willing to then lock a fixed rate.
I'm sorry?
If that's the case, they should be willing to lock a fixed rate and just say, all right, we're not going to charge for additional calls because you're never going to hit it because you're not 60,000.
Well, does Blackboard not have any additional charge at all for
Yeah. I think they're fixed, but I'm not sure.
they contacted Arrowhead, they contacted half a dozen neighbors outside of Canton and everything else. This program, I played around with it all last year or before, researched, this is the best program for this type of service. It falls under Mr. Wood's decision to make. I concur with, I guess, Mr. Rush said, or Brian said, let's go ahead and get it off the agenda and move on. Let's have it signed up. They're ready to go. As a matter of fact, it's activated right now. If we say, go ahead and flip the switch, we're already covered. So
This is a 3-year contract, am I correct? Yes. Instead, we had a 1-year with Blackboard, now it's 3 years. Okay.
One other important point, we can break the contract anytime we want, 30-day notice. So, both of them.
It's a 3-year, but you can only terminate 30 days notice at the end of the term. It doesn't have an annual ability to do that, which is really what we probably want.
So we in effect are spending $60,000 now, roughly, not 18. The first year.
37.5 the whole total for 3 years.
37.5 for 3 years.
Well, with whatever add-ons, but
That's minutes. But that's the minutes. But it's still, you're right, it's still 37.5.
Over 3 years.
Over 3 years, but the weather addendum in the first year is 31.25 and 62.50 the second and the third years. And then you've got, like I said, this 33 cents. And I agree with you, Mr. Beresford, that if they're willing to say this is sufficient for 60,000, they should be plenty willing to take that 33 cents extra additional out of the contract so that we don't have an unknown factor that could affect on what the actual cost to the city would be.
I think when we get to 60,000, we won't have to worry about it.
No, but I don't want to get over 37,500 calls and start paying 33 cents a minute for them.
Well, you know, 37,500 calls are not many. I mean, you got 8,000 households and businesses here, and you made one call 4 times, you know, 4 calls will be almost that number of minutes. If that's the case, surely there's something more than that I don't see there.
The spring, we get storms coming through here.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know.
Like I said, I got 12 calls the last one.
When does the blackboard expire?
This month. I think the first half of this month, in fact.
Do you know, Chief, when it expires?
No, sir. When you're talking code red, one call, if it calls everybody in the city one time, that is one call. It's not, they call each.
Oh, okay. All right. That clears that up.
Well, and just to be clear, the contract talks about system minutes, not calls. It's the number of minutes it takes them to make that call.
Right. Most of the messages we will send out, and they try to keep them under 45 to 30 seconds is the ideal message. And that's what you're shooting for. So if we shoot one to everybody in the city, that is 30 seconds worth of time that we just use.
Right. It's the time the call takes.
Okay.
The time the call takes times the number of calls?
No.
The time the call takes.
Oh, heck.
The system's activated. When it activates, it covers the blanket. So it's, yes, sir. We could leave a 2.5 minute message if we wanted to blow some minutes, but there's no need for that.
Case in point, delegation.
Thank you.
There's a reason we have a $20,000 limit for Mr. Wood. He's a highly trained, experienced professional at doing this. We spent 20 minutes discussing something that was completely unnecessary to be discussed out here in the public forum, taking everybody's time. Let's learn a lesson from this. Next time, let's let him do his job. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Comments? What's your pleasure? We're just going to let that ride, or what are we going to do with that?
Mr. Wood do his thing.
Okay. Let me take a look at it. I'm sure he'll make a wise decision that way. Okay. Discussion of the lease agreement for copier fleet with duplicated products.
Let me, and I don't want to belabor anything at all. I'm going to be as anxious to conclude tonight as anybody, but just so council will know, and there's no exact science to this. You know, we've spent a year trying to figure out what the proper balance and equilibrium should be as to when we send out notices. But let me tell you, we have sat down with the public safety folks and the water folks and tried to come up with what we think makes the most sense for the most number of people. But there's no way that, as Abraham Lincoln said, you can make all the people happy all the time. But this is what our notification process will be until and if we decide to amend it in the future. Tornado warnings, not watches, but warnings will be issued 24/7, middle of the night. If the warning comes through the Weather Service, in fact, that goes directly from the Weather Service. That's not even our trigger to pull there. That will be issued 24/7. Snow and ice, which is primarily related to roads, as a general rule, will be 6, and that'll be tornado warnings will be citywide. Snow and ice will be citywide from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. With the assumption being that by 9 p.m., if it's snowing and icy, most people are in and checking weather forecast on television, etc. Flood danger, 24/7, that will be on the targeted audiences. Power outages will be handled on a case-by-case basis and targeted. Water main breaks, notification on a water main break to the general public will only be made between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. And that will be to the targeted people who are presumed to be affected by that water main break. With the exception, on a 24/7 basis, notification to hospitals, assisted living centers, restaurants, motels, and schools. They'll get notice at any point in time. And then water boil notices will be issued on a case-by-case basis, usually in the daytime, which is when those boil notices are provided to the city, and those will be on a target basis too. But that's the schedule we got, and I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay, you gonna do the copy of your lease agreement?
Yeah, so that one's fairly straightforward. We had a contract that was up. On our copiers, this involves 6 copiers, I think 3 or 4 here, 1 police, 1 or 2 at police, and 1 at fire. There's 6 total. And we had advertised that on our website, and we also did solicit bids from companies that were identified to us. The low bidder for a 36-month lease is with Duplication Products, Inc., and that is at $1,044.57 a month. And actually, that will be a savings to us. We currently are paying about $1,468 a month. We could save a little bit more than that if we want to go with a longer-term lease, with a 48-month lease. But our recommendation will be that we go with the lowest bidder on that.
Okay, anyone have any questions about that? Okay. The next item, Mr. Huffman, you want to discuss the recreational use of the road?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's time that we get some use out of the reservoir.